I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What's going on, everybody? Baby Sloth here. Hope you're all having an awesome day, and today we're going to be doing a little bit of a breakdown on how to best utilize the Attunement to Flame skill tree that the Dawnblade Warlock has to offer. Now, first off, we're going to take a look at some of the class's jump abilities, followed by the grenades, and then finally we're going to take a look at the best exotics to use to get the most out of this skill tree. Jumping right into it, let's take a look at the first Warlock jump ability, and that is the Strafe Glide. Now, this glide basically allows you to have strong directional control. Now, what this means is while you are mid-glide or you're in the air, you're able to strafe left and right as being displayed on screen now. It's relatively easy to sway from side to side. Now, this Warlock ability is actually relatively decent if you do like to have a lot of control when you are trying to navigate in the air. And then in terms of speed, the quickest way to do this with all of the Warlock jumps is to spam your jump button as quickly as possible twice just before and just as you hit the floor, and making sure to cancel it. Therefore, you're kind of bursting off the ground as quick as possible, but not necessarily going too high and losing momentum. The second jump at the Dawnblade's disposal is the Burst Glide. Now, this glide allows you to have a strong initial boost of speed. Now, in my opinion, this is the glide that allows you to move the quickest and navigate the map the best. Therefore, this is the glide that I would actually recommend using in PvE and in PvP. In PvE, it doesn't necessarily matter as much what glide you use, because, you know, there's not really that much at stake in terms of your movement, but in PvP, it's incredibly important how quickly you navigate around the map, and I would definitely say that Burst Glide gives you the most advantage in terms of being able to navigate and get to control points and get to choke points quicker than your opponent. So it is personal preference what glide you use, but me personally, I would use the Burst Glide because I feel like it gives me the best chance in PvP. The final Warlock jump ability is the Balance Glide, and that's exactly what it does. It provides moderate speed and moderate direction control. So it's basically a combination of the two jumps that we've shown previously. It allows you to move slightly whilst in the air, a lot better than the Burst Glide did, and it provides a small boost of speed as well. A lot better than the first jump, but not as good as the Burst Glide ability. And for that reason, it just to me falls a bit short of the Burst Glide. It is actually quite a good jump to use, and if you do prefer any of the other jumps to the Burst Glide and you're absolutely destroying people's egos with it, feel free to use it, you know what I mean? Don't let me stop you. I just personally think the Burst Glide gives you the best potential to do the best that you can, but the Balance Glide is a decent jump nonetheless. Now, with the jumps out of the way, let's move on to the grenades the Dawnblade has available to it. The first off is the Solar Grenade. Basically, this grenade, you throw it out and there's an AoE effect which draws enemies into the center and will basically damage enemies over time. Now, the Solar Grenade lasts for around about 5 seconds. Now, I would say this grenade is very, very effective in PvE, incredibly effective. If you can get it to stick to large enemies, for instance like a servitor like I'm showing in the background, you can get it to do a lot of damage if it stays in one place, and it will basically stick to the target, so it's very, very effective. Very effective for clearing out mobs of enemies, and very effective for doing big damage to bosses. So for PvE, I'd probably say that the Solar Grenade is the best grenade the Dawnblade has available to it. There are some uses for the Solar Grenade in PvP also, especially in modes like Control that have an actual control area where you know enemies are going to want to move towards. If you're in a situation where you know that the time's on the clock and enemies are going to have to get onto that point, the radius is big enough on the Solar Grenade to cause a real problem for enemies. They're going to have to stand within the radius of the Solar Grenade, and it's going to cause a lot of damage to them. So it can be very effective in PvP, but only in very specific situations. So I'd only recommend using the Solar Grenade in PvP if you are playing modes like Control. The second grenade that the Warlock has available to it is the Firebolt Grenade. Now, how this grenade works is when you throw this grenade at an enemy, if they're within its radius, the grenade will first move inwards and then will tether and hit outwards and tag enemies. Now, this grenade has a decent range and does a decent amount of burst damage. This is why I'd recommend to use the Firebolt Grenade in PvP over the Solar Grenade, because it does burst damage. The Solar Grenade is very, very good and can do a lot more damage over time, but trying to get an opponent in PvP to stand within that radius for that amount of time is very unlikely to happen, whereas the Firebolt Grenade is very useful in PvP. If you see someone around a corner, you can quickly throw it, get a tag on them, potentially kill them if they're weak, or get them weak for when you engage them later. So I would definitely say, to put yourself in best stead for PvP, I'd recommend using the Firebolt Grenade. Now finally, the last grenade the Dawnblade has available to him is the fusion grenade. Now how this grenade works, it's basically a sticky grenade. When you throw the grenade, it will basically have some kind of tracking on it, will stick to an enemy and will basically deal a lot of damage. In PvE, it'll basically kill all small mobs like the ones I'm killing in the background in one hit. In PvP, even with a new update that's just came out, it still is not a one hit kill. Therefore, I really wouldn't recommend using this over any of the other grenades. If they do get another buff in the future and they do actually become more potent, then yes, definitely use one. But at the moment, they're still not good enough. Not good enough! Here we go then, it's time to take a look at the Warlock specific class ability. Now this is the Rift. Now you've got two options on what type of Rift you'd like to use. The first one that we're going to be taking a look at is actually the Healing Rift. Now what happens here is when you hold down your ability button, you will put down a Rift. Now this Rift is a decent amount of size that can fit a lot of teammates inside it and will last for around about 14 seconds once deployed. When standing inside the Rift, you will gain healing, and when you are at full health, you will gain an overshield. Now it's pretty effective. Out of the two Rifts, Healing Rift is definitely the one that I prefer for both PvE and PvP. In PvP, it's pretty much a no-brainer to use the Healing Rift. It helps out way more and gives you a lot better advantage in gunfights. And of course, it's pretty self-explanatory why it's so good in PvE. You can basically put down a giant well of healing that can heal you and your teammates continuously for the 14 seconds that it's active. And finally, we have the Empowering Rift. Now, this lasts for the same amount of time as the Healing Rift and has the same radius. But the only thing that's different, instead of healing you, it actually boosts your damage output and the whole team's output who stands inside it. So the main benefit of this, obviously, is if you're looking to melt down bosses in PvE, getting everyone to stand inside it and do a hell of a lot more damage. It's very, very useful for that. In PvP, it's not actually that useful because the damage increase that it gives you is not actually that great, and the healing just works out to be better. So in PvP, I definitely recommend going with the Healing Rift, but in PvE, there is actually a place for the Empowering Rift, but it's very situational. The majority of the time, you're going to want to go for the Healing Rift, but it is a bit of personal preference, so use whichever one you would like. Alright then guys, now it's time for the meat and potatoes of the video, the thing that you've came to see, the actual attunement specific abilities and how to use them effectively. Now first off, just a brief rundown on what the abilities actually do. You have the Ignition Touch, that is the Attunement of Flame's actual melee ability. What this does is striking an enemy with this ability will burn them and will also cause them to explode. Now, in terms of the grand scheme of things and compared to other classes' melee abilities, this is actually okay. The Warlock has actually very good range on their face palms, and the burn damage is actually pretty effective because if you think about it, when you strike an enemy with this ability, it's going to basically mean that they're going to be burning, and then once they are burning, it's going to be very difficult for them to recover health quickly because the burn is kind of like a tick effect and will last a decent amount of time, therefore delaying their healing recovery. So if you're able to hit someone with a melee, for some reason they survive, go around a corner, it's going to be a while for them before they get their health back to full. You will probably heal before they do and you'll be able to push them again. So in that respect, the melee is actually quite good. The actual other side of the melee though, the fact that it causes them to explode in PvE, this is actually kind of decent because you might be able to group together a couple of small mob enemies and actually kill them with it. But in terms of PvP, it's not necessarily that fantastic. Now this perk is one of the reasons why I think this attunement is so good for PvP. Now Daybreak is a super that didn't have the best of time a while ago, but ever since it's been buffed and you can move very quickly around the map, it's become a lot more powerful, and this is one of the best perks for it. Daybreak projectiles seek targets as they travel, and upon impact they launch a streak of deadly flames. Now basically what this means is you don't have to be 100% accurate when throwing them absolutely flame swords of death. They literally will just seek towards the targets if you get them, you know, in a ballpark. And then the other massive benefit is if you can throw the sword in front of the enemy, it will actually do a streak towards them, and that can also kill in one hit. So in terms of the super, this skill tree at the bottom is definitely the best one for it because it's so much more forgiving. Everlasting Fire is another reason why the super is so powerful on this attunement. Basically when you get a kill when you're in your Daybreak, it extends the duration of the super. I mean, what more can you want? I've seen people get 7th columns using this, I've seen them get slayers using this. You can honestly get, because you can move around the map so fast and you can extend the duration of this super, there's literally no limit to the amount of kills that you can get if you are good enough. So the super with this attunement is very powerful indeed. Now I'm going to move on to the last perk, and this is why I believe this attunement is definitely one of the best for PvP at the moment. Phoenix Dive. Now how this perk works is when you are mid-air, you descend quickly and restore your health when you hold down B. Now you can also activate this when you are in your super as well, and you'll basically come down to the ground, do a smash and do some damage. Now this necessarily isn't that decent in terms of, you know, use of the super, but outside of that it's so powerful. You basically have a free heal that actually activates quite quickly, and there's not really a cooldown for it. In PvP, this is absolutely incredible. You get into so many situations where you peek out, you might not have an advantage against your opponent, they might have done a lot more damage to you, and then if you use this ability, you can go back into cover, use it, heal up, come back out, and then finish the enemy off. It honestly is one of the best PvP abilities. It's essentially a free heal, and this is the only class that basically has it. There are no other classes that have a heal that isn't on a cooldown, or don't have to use an ability for. It isn't even an ability, it's literally something you can just do for free. That is why it's so useful. One of the best things about this attunement is the fact that it is so incredibly balanced, and with the new sandbox changes that have just happened, everyone's trying to figure out the new meta. But the good thing is with this, you can kind of use anything and be relatively successful with it. There's not like I'm going to recommend a certain playstyle with it. You can snipe with it, it's absolutely fine. You can also rush with it, it's absolutely fine, because if you're rushing in, you might get a kill. If you can just get yourself into cover and you can lift yourself up in the air and get that heal off, you're right back in the fight. But exactly the same for if you're holding a lane and you're holding an angle and you peek shooting someone, you just about get the kill, then you see another enemy, you can quickly bounce back into cover, get the heal off again, and then bounce right back out and take them on as well and challenge them. Now, one of the exotics that I would actually recommend using right now, if you guys haven't used, is the transversive steps. Now, these things have just recently got a massive buff, and kind of like a hidden buff, especially if you are a shotgun user and you like to rush. It's just got an absolutely massive upgrade in the fact that before, automatically reloading your weapons when you're sprinting wasn't actually that useful in PvP, but now because of the new special ammo system, this perk is actually incredibly vital. If you don't have slide shot on a shotgun, what that basically does is when you're sliding in, you basically will reload your shotgun for you, so it's very effective if you do like to play that shotgun aggressive playstyle. But what these transversive steps allow you to do is you don't have to waste a weapon perk on having slide shot. Now if you do like to shotgun, you can actually keep the transversive steps on, use a different perk that's going to be able to benefit you in a different way, and basically you can still rush around the map, not have to worry about reloading when you're picking up blocks of ammo. It'll reload itself for you and you're always in the fight. So that's what I'd actually recommend for using with an exotic. If you do want to use something else, feel free to do so, but that's what I recommend if you do like to play that aggressive playstyle. Overall though, this attunement is absolutely fantastic, but definitely to make the most of it, make sure after every engagement when possible to be lifting yourself up in the air and getting that heal off, because it's absolutely crucial to get the most out of this class. But that's been it from me, guys. I do plan on making more videos like this, so if you would like to see some more, please let me know down in the comments down below. And if you like this guide or have any criticism of any kind, please let me know down in the comments as well down below. It'd really help me out. I'd like to know you guys' feedback, but I'd like to thank you all very much for watching and have a great day.